There's a distinct moment that I really felt like, I don't think I can do this anymore. I think in all teachers' DNA or in our hearts, we have that desire to mentor, to help others. We have that passion of just watching others grow and reach their potential, and we find joy in that. I've always had that passion to help them grow and to inspire them and to help them reach that potential that I see that they don't always see. My first 3 years of teaching, I had been very much at school. I had stayed at school as late as I needed to. I would grade papers at home all the time, and I literally thought, I can't do this job and still have a life. And I did. I did not know if I was going to come back for my 5th year. And a wise woman talked to me that summer, and she said, "Do you pray for your students?" And I said, "Of course I pray for my students, yeah, before I go to bed at night, I say my prayers, and there's always those specific kiddos that I pray for." And she said, "No, when you're in your classroom, do you pray for your students?" I was like, I've never recognized God's presence in my classroom because I was so overwhelmed with my to-do lists and the expectations and all of these things that I felt like I needed to live up to, that I never saw Him in my daily life at work. It was almost as though I'd separated those two things. And it came to me literally having to think about quitting my job to realize that. And then I was like, no. And at first I remember thinking, okay, I'm not happy at my job. God is either moving me in a different direction or He's changing my heart. And I wasn't quite sure which way it was going. But I remember saying to my husband, something's changing in me and I don't know what it is. I started my 5th year, so this was last year. And it was not, it wasn't easy, but my perspective was completely different. Every now and then the pressure would come through, but the pressure didn't seem as great. I just prayed that He would fill those gaps, that I was going to give everything I could give up to a certain point where I'm not sacrificing my sanity and my life and my happiness, because that's not what He wants and that's not what we're called to do. And so I started my 5th year and intentionally praying for my students, intentionally praying over my classroom before school, just opening my heart a little bit more to Him and to my students, where I had literally built a wall of, I'm tough, I can't show emotion, I've got to be, we got to do this, this, and this, and this, and it's almost like I closed that part of myself off when I was in the classroom, and just allowing my kids to see me and for me to really love on them. And the kids weren't any different than the kids I'd had for the first 3 or 4 years of teaching. Some of the responsibilities weren't any different, but God changed my heart and He changed the way that I viewed them. And I looked at those crazy troublemakers and I loved them. And they didn't drive me up the wall like they used to drive me up the wall. And I think that it was that moment of, I can't do this anymore, where God changed my heart, but I had to hit that moment for Him to guide me through this. If you are sitting there thinking, I can't do this anymore, I think every teacher has been there. I think that you have to hit a point where you rely solely on the Lord. And it's tough because we are teachers and we are superheroes to these kids, and we want to do it all, and we want to be successful, and we want our data to be at the top of the list, and we want our kids to be the best kids, and we want our administrators to pat us on the back and recognize us. But that's not always the Lord. And there was a Bible study with teachers that I was in, and a woman said, "Live for the applause of nail-scarred hands." And I think that's where our focus needs to be, because there's so many places in education where Satan tries to bring us down. And there's so many ways you can be recognized, and there's so many ways you can be put on this pedestal, but is that really where God wants us? Or does He want us on our knees, praying to Him, helping these babies and these kids be better people? We have to remember what our mission is, and we have to remember the applause that we're living for. That's where you're gonna find your true passion and your true calling. I don't think God is calling us to give up on education. I think He's calling us to change our hearts and to change our eyes and our minds. Because if you're feeling bogged down and you're feeling like you can't do this, then the things of this world are weighing on you. And you have to let that go, and you have to give it to him. And it's not like you do it once and then it goes away, because I experience it still. But I've seen what he can do when I give it to him. And so it becomes easier and easier every time to walk into this room and go, I give it to you. I'm giving it to you. I'm gonna do the best I can, and I'm not gonna let Satan beat me down. And I'm going to love on these kids, and I'm gonna try to give them what they need through his strength and not my own.